Let's take a trip down memory lane. Before rating, before knowing what a tier set was, before you really thought about numbers or performance. Your first character in a new game that seemed endless. You're running a dungeon and someone there asks, "Does anyone have Recount?" And you have no idea what they're talking about. Odds are this was your first introduction to add-ons. For many of us, Recount was one of the first add-ons we ever installed. It's vastly popular, easily understood, and requires barely any setup. But perhaps this new player is you, and you've stumbled across this video in order to learn more about it. Well, whether you're a new or old player, I hope this UI workshop will shed a little light on what Recount can do for you. Typically when one thinks of Recount, they think of in-game damage meters. Recount certainly has that covered. For example, if you hover your mouse over the player name, the tooltip will give you more information about top damaging abilities, who they attack, and even pet statistics. If you click on their name, a new window will pop up with more details and pie charts. Here you can see a breakdown of exactly how much damage each of your abilities did, and what percentage of your total damage they make up. Hovering your mouse over an ability will break it down further and show you, for example, how many times it critted. Clicking on the magnifying glass will bring up even more data for both outgoing and incoming effects. If you click on these little arrows here, you can cycle through more options like your damage targets, how much time you spend attacking a target, and resists. Investigating these numbers can help you answer questions like, is my rotation where it's supposed to be? Do I have enough hit? Or was I DPSing the wrong ad the whole time? While Recount has a lot of information for DPS, it can provide other helpful information as well. Many of the detailed breakdowns that we saw for DPS are also available for healers. Selecting Healing Done and hovering over a healer name will show you their top 3 heals and their top 3 healed, and clicking on the name will bring up a detailed window showing you how their healing spells break down. You can also see who they are focusing their heals on. In my case it was the tank, which you can tell since 94% of my healing went to her. You can also view overheals and the actual time spent healing specific players. This can help you answer questions like, did I stick to my healing assignment? Or, was I using my mana efficiently? You can see all the additional information Recount can show you through this drop-down list, even dispels and interrupts. Want to compare trinkets that return mana or see how much mana your tier set bonus is worth? Check out mana gained. Who keeps breaking crowd control? Check out CC breakers. Another very useful part of Recount is the death log. Click on deaths and choose a player name. This will bring up another window that will show you a list of damage and healing taken leading up to the moment they died. Any of this data can be shared with other players too. If you want to share a particular data set, Recount makes that pretty easy. Just click on the trumpet icon and choose how you want it displayed, either through a particular chat channel or privately through a whisper. Clicking report will then broadcast the data, line by line, in your selected output. It's good etiquette to not spam the meters. It's usually best to confine them to whispers or sharing them only if other people request it. If you click on the page icon, you can choose whether you wanted to show data from just the current fight, for all recorded fights, or just go back and pick a specific attempt. So now that you know some of what Recount can do for you, let's brush the dust off my mage alt and take a look at some of the settings. This is what Recount looks like when you first install it. You open the Recount configuration by typing /recountconfig or clicking on the little cogwheel. Recount is one of those add-ons that works just fine without much configuration, so if you don't want to spend time doing that, you can just leave the settings as is. If you do want to tweak it a bit, there are some options available to you. Firstly, you can filter which data you want shown and recorded. So for example, by default, your own data is shown in the main window and recorded, along with deaths. Unchecked is time data, which is used mostly for graphs and buffs and debuffs. By default, the pet data is merged with owner data, so their DPS will be included in the display. If you want them separated, however, you can just uncheck Merge with Pet Owners. Recount also takes into account absorption effects, like Power Word Shield, and will estimate how effective the absorb was and will include it in the healing display. The Recount window will automatically display during all instances, arenas, and so on. However, if you only want it to be active during specific encounters, like raids, then you can choose between the options here. The data deletion section controls how Recount's stored data is purged. By default, it will always ask you before doing so. Moving over to the Window tab, we can choose which buttons we'd like to show, the sizing and spacing of the rows of data, and whether or not you'd like to see the total bar, scroll bar, or have it auto-hide on combat. In the middle section, you can reset the window position if you've somehow lost track of it, scale the size of it and the config, and lock the window into place once you're happy with its position. On the right is where you can choose various graphical displays of overall RAID or network performance, though keep in mind it can be a bit of a memory hog depending on your machine. If you want to see a graph of your personal DPS instead of the RAID overall, you can right-click on your name and choose Show Real-Time Graph. You can even compare players by right-clicking on their name and selecting Add to Current Graph. The Appearance tab is where you can adjust how the bars look. These settings are pretty self-explanatory. Here's where you can choose your bar texture and font as well. This list is generated based off what fonts and textures you have installed already. For more textures, I will include a link below to some that I like. In the Color tab, you can adjust all of the color settings within Recount, such as title bar colors, class colors, and bar text color. While having in-game meters can be very advantageous to assessing personal and RAID performance, it's important to remember that it's only a tool, and like most tools, it matters how well you use it. Meters alone will not give you the whole picture. It's also a good idea to not obsess over meters during an encounter. Ideally, your focus should be on the RAID or dungeon itself, and making sure to not stand and fire. I hope this guide to Recount has been helpful for you. As always, to suggest an add-on for the next UI workshop, please go to learntoraid.com/forum/UI-suggest. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube, watch us on Twitch TV, and follow us on Twitter. Thanks for watching and have a great day.
I wasn't feeling so good. I just didn't feel like playing anymore. So I went home and I got all comfy and cozy and all scrunched up in front of my phonograph.